Stop with the 4% rule, please. I want to go on a little bit of a rant here today, and sorry about my unshaven, unkept face. With old Splinty here, it's hard to shave, and I'll probably shave tonight. But anyway, I want to talk about this a little bit because I did a video yesterday on I can't remember. I was on taking an income annuity for a 10-year period certain and allowing your Social Security to kick in to get the delayed earnings benefits credits. So basically, the issue is a guy was 60 years old. What if he did a 10-year period certain annuity to allow him to not draw Social Security until he's 70? I just don't see the benefit of that, frankly. If you're going to do an income annuity, do it for joint and survivor life for you and your surviving spouse, because then there's something called mortality credits that you can take advantage of. And I don't want to get in that here in this video. But a fixed period annuity doesn't do it for me. It's just not in this day and age of low interest rates and whatnot. So anyway, so someone who was a good commenter on the channel had wrote in and she was saying, she wants to only take. So what we're using, I think we're using $1 million, $100,000, I can't remember. But she says I only want to take 4% a year off, or $40,000 or $4,000, whatever the starting base was. And I asked her why, and she goes, because she doesn't want to run out of money. And I asked her for where she's basing that, the 4%. I know where it is, but I'm trying to get her to answer this because that's how we can engage in discussion about how the 4% rule simply isn't. It's just not. You shouldn't use it. I'll go into that later on here today. A guy had kind of jumped in there in the comments, tell me about the Trinity study, which I'm familiar with the Trinity study, that he said, I'm sure she's referring to the Trinity study. She probably wasn't specifically, but the what's the word? The mainstream 4% rule has settled in so much that anyone who follows any kind of retirement planning has heard it. They don't probably know where it came. They certainly don't know the Trinity study. They don't know Bill Bengen or anything, but it's now in the mainstream vernacular. The 4% rule, and I was hoping that she would answer about not that she needs to answer, but the issue is, I was hoping she would answer that so I could say, from where does that come from? How did they derive the 4% rule? Because it's kind of like, how can I say this? It's kind of like the thing with CO2, increasing CO2 and increasing temperatures. Once you pull back the curtain and you can see it's just a guy coming up with these theories, you realize there's no correlation between the two at all. There's no direct correlation between increasing CO2 and increasing temperatures. And the same kind of thing with the 4% rule. Once you pull back the curtain, you're sitting there thinking, okay, 4% rule maybe, but maybe not. In fact, once I start telling you why you shouldn't use it, you'll say you don't want to use it anymore. So you start pulling back the curtain. Now, I'm not using Bill Bengen or the Trinity study in the same the way I look at the climate change fanatics, because I do think that's, there's a reason those guys are doing this, to make money. I mean, my goodness, you scare people, more academic research is done, more government grants, and you can make a ton of money. Just look at Michael Mann. And I don't think that's the case on the 4% rule proponents. I just think it's an easy number for people to digest, because everyone's looking for a number. Remember the retirement number. What's my number? Everyone's looking for a simplicity when it comes to retirement planning. And so somehow we just literally devolved into the 4% rule. All right, so why should you not use it? Because the 4% rule, there's a couple things. It's based on the idea that if you have $100,000 today, you're going to take 4% a year off that, 4% a year initially off that, and then you're going to adjust it with inflation each and every year until you die. All right. Okay. So you get me? So you take 4,000 or whatever it is, just 4,000, then it'll be 4,150 the next year, 4,340 the next year, whatever it is. But the problem with that is, where is the evidence that spending increases in a linear basis like that? Do we have any evidence at all that your spending as all that matters will have your income needs go up each and every year with inflation? And the answer is if there's any evidence to be seen, it's the exact opposite, that your spending is going to go down as you age. And I can't really do this well because of Splinty here, but we're having this wider gap, and it's not going to work very well, but we have your spending dropping and then your income, your spending dropping, but the demand of your portfolio as a distribution is increasing because you're under the auspices of the 4% rule. So you have this widening gap between what the proponents of the 4% rule explain relative to what your actual spending will most likely be. And so the 4% rule, and it's, I don't even care, it's 5%. I don't care what the freaking rule is. The fact that you're saying I'm going to increase my spending each and every year with inflation from a starting point, why? What's the evidence of that? Where is this evidence that you're going to need to do that? And the answer is there does none exist. And so if none exists, then why are we all falling into just lockstep with this idea of a 4% rule? It doesn't make sense to me. Secondly, the 4% rule, which I don't like as well, is a safe withdrawal rate. And look, again, the proponents of this aren't doing this like saying, oh, this is, well, the proponents, the Trinity study from Trinity University or Trinity College in San Antonio, plus the Bill Bangin. No one's sitting there saying the 4% rule is God's spoken word. No one's saying that. But again, what a lot of people, the proponents who haven't looked over, dug in the research they haven't seen where it's derived from or where it comes from. And it's a safe withdrawal rate. Does that make sense? That means of 1,000,000 times you run Monte Carlo projections, 1,000 times, 100 times, how many times you run these Monte Carlo scenarios, that is when you would never have run out of money. Literally, it's the one safe withdrawal rate that you would not have run out of money in the past, which means that is essentially the worst case scenario. And I'm thinking, okay, worst case scenario, which would have, they said, well, if we would have retired in 1973 and 1974, if we would have taken 4% a year off, we would have still had money at our death. If we retired in 2000, we would have had, if we took 4% off, and actually Bill Bangin obviously did it in 1994, so it was before him, the Trinity study as well. So they didn't recognize what 2001 and 2 would have been, never mind 2007 through 2009. Either way, the 4% rule is derived on a safe withdrawal rate. What is the most amount you can take without ever having your portfolio exhausted before your death over a 30-year time frame? Secondly, the portfolio also had, 60%, 55% stock, maybe 50, I can't remember, but between 50 and 60% stocks and the rest in intermediate bonds. All right. Now, intermediate bonds back then paid a heck of a lot more than they do today. All right. So you got to challenge the idea that the intermediate bonds were paying 5.5% to 6%, and they're now paying 3 to 3.5%. Does that do some validity to the 4% rule? Now, on top of that, Bangin, it only had large cap domestic stocks and intermediate bonds. And then the Trinity study diversified a little bit more, and that's fine. It diversified between small caps, mid caps, international, corporate bonds, government by the whole thing. That's you can do that too. So, but the whole point is all this stuff has been challenged now to say, well, what if you did this? What if you did that? Does a 4% rule still hold? And yeah, it still holds, but why does it hold? It holds you to your minimal, it holds you to taking out minimal than what you probably could, which is why I say forget the 4% rule. Start with 5%. Say, I'm going to take 5% off my portfolio each and every year. And you can even do 6%. Because the issue comes in is that you're not going to spend linear. You're going to spend and goes like this, boink. Or it's just going to flatten. Or it's going to go like, I don't know what it's going to be. But to limit yourself to a 4% rule is meaning you're going to live like a pauper so your heirs can live like kings. Because you're going to leave them significantly more than you probably intended to because you were so afraid of running out of money. Like, I'm just going to sit on the 4%. So no, don't do that because you're limiting your own ability to enjoy what you squirreled away to retire on. So what I tell people all the time, and this I do think a lot of financial planners do get this right. We got the go-go, the slow-go, and the no-go years. So basically from 60 to 70 is a go-go, 70, 80 is a slow-go, 80 to 90 is a no-go years. And essentially what that means is you're probably going to consume, i.e. spend, the most amount of your money on the front end of your retirement. So you're going to consume that where you're spending more. So if you're only limiting yourself to 4% a year, you're probably not consuming as much as you really could have been, simply because as you get older, your spending needs go down. Does that make sense? So if you're only doing 4% a year, you're saying, okay, I'm only going to have 4,000 this year, 4,150, 4,250, so on. But by the time I'm 90, hey, I'm going to have $10,000 a year. Yeah, but you're 90, you're just sitting in your chair, freaking smoking cigars and drinking Tang. And you're like, nah, that's all I want to do and watch, I don't know, watch what I was at physical therapy today, watching, what's that lady's name? Kelly and Ryan. I thought Michael Strahan was with Kelly, so I don't know where Ryan came in. But first of all, those guys are way too skinny. That lady in particular, I feel bad for her. I mean, you can't be that skinny, be that healthy. That's bad. Don't be that skinny, man. I don't think that. I mean, look, that's not attractive. I'm just telling you, if you're looking at this video and you're like, that's not attractive. Being that skinny is not attractive to men. It's just not. So just be advised that looks sickly, in my opinion. I felt bad for this woman being that skinny because I'm like, she obviously has some stuff going on mentally that she says if she puts on any weight, people won't like her or find her attractive anymore. And that's not good. That's not good. Don't fall for that crap, man. I'm telling you right now, because that's not healthy. It's just not. Anyway, so I was watching. So I'm just sitting on my front porch, smoking a cigar, drinking Tang, and I'm watching Kelly and Ryan, whoever these people are. You're not going to do the same thing as you did at 65 years old, which is travel to Honduras, gardening out there, getting on a freaking backhoe and just doing a hugo culture. You're not doing all that at a 90-year-old, just not. So the issue is if you limit your expenditures on the front end so that we can have mass expenditures at the back, well, you're going to be on the back end, you're going to have all these mass expenditures, but you're not going to want to spend it because you don't have the capacity mentally or physically to do it. So don't do that. And so that's my thing. Ultimately, my thing with the 4% rule is assumes 50% 50 stocks to bonds. So if you have well, I do the barbell approach because I say, look, have a couple years covered cash, everything else in stocks, be done with it, but whatever. Or just do the 5%. So I'm going to take 5% a year off my portfolio each and every year. And if it turns out where I have a year where I need more, then take it. If it turns out where the market gets hammered, well, tighten your belt. I mean, why? I don't understand why we have to have the simplicity when it comes to your specific retirement plan, where your specific retirement plan is going to be different than my specific retirement plan, which is going to be different than that guy's. Don't shortchange yourself on the front end, man. I just don't. The sequence of return risk is a big deal. I get that, which is why I advocate keeping 2 to 3 years of living expenses in cash. That way you don't have to draw down a portfolio that's already with a mass drawdown. So you have 2 to 3 years of cash, which again, the 4% rule is contingent on the safe withdrawal rate. If the market tanked, how much could I safely take out without running out of money? And again, this is only as safely could you take out of your portfolio. It doesn't say how much money you have left. I mean, it could be $1, it could be $1 million, but there's other assets you could tap into. Your home equity, for instance. I had a couple guys lately, it's weird, posting on YouTube that your home is worthless or useless, unless you're using it from a reverse mortgage perspective. And of course, I don't like reverse mortgages. It's like, how that doesn't make any sense. Have you ever heard of imputed income? I'm not having to pay rent because I own my home. Inherently, my home is a value as a corresponding rent I would have to pay if I did not own it. The idea that your home is useless, it's crazy to me. So anyway, what happens now is you say, okay, let's just have a bad year. And you're like, oh man, I had to burn through my cash. Okay, well then you let the markets recoup and you put the money back in cash. Or you say, look, I can't go on that vacation to friggin' Rome I was hoping to do because the markets are tight. I mean, whatever it is. Situation dictates. Be nimble, but be common sense too. So if you're like, man, I really want to go on that vacation to Rome, but I'm only going to adhere to the 4% rules, I'm not going to do it. Don't do that. It's nuts. Just, And secondly, remember the 4% rule is 50-50. I advocate ultimately 20-80 because you're going to have your 20% in bonds and CDs and 80% in stocks essentially. You got your Social Security, which is a bond in of itself. You got potential for your home, which you can always do a reverse mortgage, which you absolutely do. You got potential for downsizing. You got potential to do all this. But why limit your front end of your retirement by some number that just says everyone follows it as if it's God's spoken word, the 4% rule? Don't do that. Please don't do that. Or justify why you're doing that. And remember, your 4% rule says you're not going to run out of money. All right. Liquid net worth. And I'll always say it's funny too, because I had a guy who I did this plan. He had a 0% survivability probability rate on his Monte Carlo analysis, 0%, because his portfolio was exhausted, right? Because he was taking distributions out for whatever reason, and he didn't have that much to start with. But with Social Security and his pension, he had well more than any income he could possibly need, and yet he had a 0% success rate. So he ran out of money, but he had well more income than he could possibly spend because of his pension and Social Security. I just thought that was funny. That was actually, I'll probably do a video on that. I think I might have, but I'll do another one too. It showed you the inadequacy by far of the Monte Carlo projections, because you don't succeed retirement-wise. He's like, well, I got $120,000 of Social Security and pension income. And I'm only spending $80,000, but you don't succeed. So is he supposed to go back to work? Silly. All right. Don't forget to smash and like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.